everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Amwell's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee's podcast series, DEI Dialogues. These conversations will spotlight the voices of our committee and their distinct experiences as we spend this year together and celebrate various U.S. Heritage Months. For our first episode, I want to welcome Noah Walker. Noah, thank you so much for joining and kicking off this series. For those who don't know you yet, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, guys. My name's Noah. I'm an associate implementation manager here at Amwell. I've been here for about 9 months. I grew up in Rock Hill, South Carolina, born and raised, and I also went to school at the University of South Carolina. Go Gamecocks! Some passions and hobbies that I really enjoy include like running. I ran track at the University of South Carolina, so I still enjoy running. I also enjoy working out. I enjoy traveling, photography, and the occasional binge watching Netflix.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your education. I know you have a master's in health information tech, which is so cool. What inspired you to take that extra step in your studies?
So healthcare wasn't always my passion, but once I learned how it was directly affecting me and my family and my community, it kind of grew into a passion. In high school, when I actually started to learn more about South Carolina and its demographics, I noticed I was seeing and experiencing these things firsthand and didn't even realize. One example is I had a first cousin with an undiagnosed tumor. We were about 3 years old, and I remember seeing him in the hospital all the time and we just did not understand. And for months, his doctors did not know what the problem was. Another example was watching people that live in my area purposely drive an hour or two to receive care in the bigger city because there was no hospitals near, or they just did not want to receive care in the areas because they know it's not quality care. You think that these things are normal because you see it and you experience every day, but in reality, this is not normal and this should not be normalized.
Yeah, that is crazy to hear. And the normalization of healthcare access is, to your point, incredibly regional. I think it's fascinating to hear your experiences. So
Yeah.
once your cousin was able to get a diagnosis, I mean, where did that end up going?
So he was at the Columbia Hospital, Columbia, South Carolina. That's the capital. Apparently transferred to Charleston, South Carolina. They were in the elevator with the doctor. This doctor wasn't even giving my cousin care. And my aunt and the doctor were basically talking. And the doctor actually ended up giving a recommendation of what it could possibly be. And lo and behold, it was the tumor. Yes, it was like the doctor was like an angel.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Talk about a second opinion.
Yes. And then how I got into health information technology. I started off as a computer information systems major as a freshman, but I did not enjoy it at all. And one of my good friends was actually a nursing major. And by sophomore year, he transferred his major to health informatics. And as I watched him and was asking him questions, he introduced me to health informatics. It was like a whole new realm of healthcare that I was able to combine both my passions of technology and healthcare in one. So I never looked back. So I ended up transferring to the University of South Carolina, where they did not have a health informatics program. So I ended up majoring in information science with a minor of health promotion, education, and behavior, which led me to getting the master's degree in health information technology. So I wanted to stay true to myself during my time. So I always tried to incorporate my passions of race inequality into my schoolwork. One example of that was a paper I did on AI and bias. Many AI systems lack the capacity to recognize the racial differences in humans, thus making it untrustworthy and unsafe, especially for people of color. Like one of the things I talked about was facial recognition, how AI has trouble identifying non-white faces. Google AI system was labeling Black users as gorillas.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then another one was search engine bias. When you search up white teenagers on Google, images display of happy white teenagers. But if you search 3 Black teenagers, many mugshots always show. Yeah. It even go down to the AI and the justice system. The AI justice systems use the correctional offender management profiling for alternative sanctions. also known as Compass. And they were literally biased against Black prisoners and gave them higher probability of committing crime compared to the white prisoners who had a similar crime. 7,000 crimes were reviewed and only 20% was correct. And it also goes into healthcare. AI is starting to be used for healthcare.
Right. Yeah. I
Which,
mean, we're using it a little bit within our
yeah.
automated care programs. Yeah.
So yeah, healthcare and AI bias, due to systematic inequalities that are embedded in my system, it can be difficult to cultivate a standard of fairness. But I'll kind of go more into that later.
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, that's some complex stuff. I think it's so admirable that you took the time in your thesis to take a look at all of that, because that is really cutting edge tech. And especially as an Amwellian, where we have so many healthcare advocates and warriors, it's important to keep this all in front of mind, especially with health access and equity there.
Yeah.
I did want to return a little bit more to some personal stuff before we dive back into your education. And I know that you mentioned you weren't always interested in healthcare. Tell us a little bit more about your childhood. What were your passions and interests when you were younger?
Technology has always been my passion. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been interested in technology, and I think I got it from my dad. He always had the latest gadgets and gaming systems when I was growing up, and he also always had like a laptop or a desktop when it was still like fairly new. One of my favorite gadgets he had was the Motorola Razor. That was my
No,
that was my
no
favorite one he
way.
had. Yes, he had a Motorola Razor. And when it got old, I was so excited when he gave it to me.
Yeah, I cannot believe you just said that. My mom also had one, and it was a pink one, and I also got it when she was done. I think she got the first model of the iPhone afterwards. Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, but when I actually was able to use the desktop, it was a
Mm-hmm.
game changer. Being exposed to technology at an early age had really taught me a lot. I was in elementary school putting viruses on the computer, trying to add songs to my MP3 player using the infamous LimeWire and,
Mm.
and
Mm-mm-mm.
Napster Rhapsody.
Yeah, yeah.
Also in middle school, I was even learned how to edit HTML code for my MySpace and Tumblr profiles.
Oh,
And
there
I
you
was just
go.
learning through trial and error. Around 2013, I believe, I was in 8th grade. I actually started making money on YouTube by creating lyric videos to songs. How did I stumble on that? I literally do not know, but it just happened.
What? Okay,
Yeah.
what is your most viewed video? Because I love those lyric videos.
Um, it was a song by Big Sean featuring Nicki Minaj, and it got over 1 million views.
That's so entrepreneurial. Wow.
Yeah. But will definitely admit, as I got older, I
Mm-hmm.
got a little more conservative with my tech use just to protect my information and data. I already put so much data out as a child that like I try to limit the data and information that I put out as an adult. So the awareness of how my data is being tracked and possibly used for unethical reasons, that also played in a big role of why I decreased my technology use.
It's so interesting because, being at Amwell as long as you have, we've really only known virtual work, and in an era where we're spending more time in the familiarity of our own homes. I know that you're out traveling right now. What do you like to do to keep yourself mentally fit and active?
One thing I really, really enjoy doing, and I try to incorporate almost every day, is going for a walk.
Okay.
Get those steps in. That's one of
Uh-huh.
my favorite. That's one of my favorite things to do. It honestly, just being outside and just being in the atmosphere, just really like calms me down. Like if I'm
Mhm.
stressed at work of too much is going on, sometimes I'll just like, okay, I just need to take a walk. Another thing that I really enjoy doing is working from home for friends. I have a
Mhm.
friend that works in the assembly industry, and when we work together, I learn so much about myself and just learn so much about my role and their role because we're able to compare and contrast and kind of find new ideas or new processes that we can implement to help each other out.
Yeah, I do love working next to people in your friends that you wouldn't otherwise get to because of this new hybrid workspace. And it is fun comparing those corporate stories.
Yeah. Another thing I'll do for my mental health is I do a lot of yoga.
Ooh.
Yeah. I usually sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and literally just put on a yoga video on YouTube, and that kind of helps. That gives me that boost of energy for the day. And
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day, if it's just a 5-minute shavasana or a 5-minute in child pose, like I just always realize how much calmer and how much focus I get after.
I think that is so admirable. I do find myself needing, that occasional seventh inning stretch, but I can't say I've done a shavasana ever, but maybe that's what my life's been missing. Now, I do want to pull this into diversity and the committee. I know you joined us this year, and we're so excited to have you, and of course, to be able to kick off this series with you. And we're recording this episode in the first days of 2023. Black History Month is in February, which is an annual and cultural heritage month in the US, but also celebrated in Canada and the UK, being observed for the past 53 years. It was created to pay tribute to key figures, the exceptional adversity, and the historical achievements of African Americans. I'm curious what this month's recognition of your heritage means to you, how your family, communities, how you celebrate with your friends.
This month honestly gives me a sense of pride to see the extreme steps that were taken by those individuals to allow me to live life now.
Mm-hmm.
Through adversity, Black people were still able to hold their head high and fight for their rights. So that always gives me extreme pride. At the same time, however, it also brings me a sense of sadness to see what they actually had to endure to achieve this sense of equality. And I do believe that the fight of equality isn't over yet. It was just passed to a new. It's just passed to a new generation.
Yeah, and a new, different shape and form of that fight. It's so interesting as we read about what's happening to Black Americans in the news, and then we come to this month. How do you feel about the kind of performative nature of these Heritage Months on occasion? I know that our podcast will be addressing this a little bit throughout the series, but Black history acknowledged in one month throughout the year. Curious your thoughts.
It's funny you say that because a lot of Black people really don't like Black History Month being in February due to the fact that February only has 28 days. So it comes off, I don't want to say a bare minimum, but a bare minimum. That's how a lot of Black
literally
people
the bare
feel.
minimum. Yeah, I
A
didn't
lot of
even
Black,
think about that.
yeah.
So I know I wanted to return to your experiences in healthcare access, the experiences that you were sharing about your friends and family. In addition to recognizing this History Month, let's also talk about your day-to-day experiences, especially with an eye on health access and working at a company where we're driven by the mission of enabling equitable care at the time and place of need. What are your thoughts on health access and quality for Black Americans? And is this any different for the mental health experience?
I think health access and quality for Black Americans can be so much better. A lot of factors play into this, however. You got to think about environment, education, access to high quality foods and produce, employment opportunities in the community. But I do think the biggest factor is access to quality care. It's been researched and proven so many times that Black Americans do not receive the same quality of care, and this is causing disparities in health outcomes. Black Americans are more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes, cancer, stroke, HIV, and women are way more likely to die during childbirth compared to their white counterparts. I believe these factors are causing a medical distrust in the Black community, which makes us not want to go receive care. A lot of existing medical research and data is biased. Some of those biases are Black people's nerve endings are less sensitive than white people's, and Black people's skin is thicker than white people's. This bias is causing us not to be taken as serious. I see a lot of Black people turning to holistic care because of things like this. However, I do believe technology is helping out so much with online sources. We are not able to research symptoms, find different treatments, and self-diagnose. This can, in return, encourage Black people to go actively out to go get care.
I do think there are so many resources out there where self-diagnosis is a possibility or more approachable, but I hear you. I think the professional opinion is what we're all seeking. And I didn't even think about how it's a systemic trust issue across the research papers and what's being published and what's being captured, because maybe you're not heading into the offices as often because of the inequality that you're experiencing.
Yeah. For mental health, I believe we recently started having a focus, which I'm super glad about. From my experience and from other Black people that I associate with, mental health was not discussed in the home. I've heard this from multiple Black parents as well as mine. You have a roof over your head, food on your plate, and clothes on your back. What do you have to be depressed for? This phrase invalidates my feelings and can cause even more depression. However, I can't be mad at them because mental health was probably not discussed by their parents, so they don't know what to say. I also believe that a lot of Black kids go undiagnosed and get labeled as bad or troublemakers, but in reality needs help. The belief that the kid is bad usually results in discipline, which can end up in a spanking, further affecting Black kids. Discipline is huge in the Black community and sometimes can be taken to the extreme, which I think is a trauma response from slavery. I also think a lot of Black kids, especially in urban areas, go through trauma and don't realize that it was trauma because everyone around them goes through something similar. So it seemed as normal. This unpacked trauma affects a lot of our attitudes and behaviors as we grow up. And I think a prime example of this is the school to prison pipeline. To combat this, I think we need to destigmatize mental health in the community. It has such a negative connotation to it that I think parents are embarrassed to be diagnosed because they don't want to be seen or their kid to be seen as different. Society already treats us different. The shade of a Black makes us get treated different, even within our own community. So part of me can understand why people would rather not be diagnosed so they won't be seen as different as they are already portrayed to be. I am, however, excited for the future of mental health in the Black community. Now that we're having these conversations and more resources are available, I think there's going to be a shift in the percentage of Black people getting mental health care. More Black folks will be advocates for mental health, causing more Black people wanting to receive mental health services. I also think that this will positively impact all areas of the Black community, including physical health, education, and employment, just to name a few.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's all one system when we think about mental health and how it ties to our physical health and well-being in our communities. And I think you're completely right. I want to return to an earlier point where you mentioned the impetus of this generation to start these conversations now, break any generational cycles of taboo around this topic. And your honestly inspiring belief and faith in the future is, I mean, exactly what we want to hear. And hopefully this conversation is inspiring to people that are listening and also encouraging to folks that maybe don't really know where to start. So to close today, I want to leave our listeners with something they can engage with and think on, in addition to all of your thought-provoking comments today, Noah. So what is a piece of media that you think portrays an element of your unique experience as a Black American man? Maybe this is in your community, maybe this is in your experiences getting access to healthcare, mental or otherwise, or even just a person in tech.
Because there's so many different Black movies and Black media out there that portrays the Black experience, it's kind of hard for me to narrow down to one, but I have a couple of ideas in my head that can be used.
Let's hear them.
One of them is Moonlight.
Oh,
yes, I love that movie. Another one, Hidden Figures, is also a good one. The Great Debaters, that's also a good one. Get Out is a good one for those that like sci-fi.
That is a great one. Well, I think those selections are prime. Noah, thank you so much for sharing and so much for joining us. I know we put you in the hot seat and you're breaking the ice with this series, so we appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tess.